What up is Marcus with Dynasty Football Dads. We're doing a free jersey giveaway. It's Jerry Jeudy. It's a signed jersey. All we have to do is hit 1K and we'll be giving that to one of you subscribers.
Now turn up.
Alright, so we're doing more Superflex content. I've been asked for more Superflex content, and this is what you're going to get. And eventually I'll just show my rankings out, but I'm probably going to wait to do rankings, like full rankings, until after draft day. I mean, we are talking a couple weeks away, unless I just get bored and I want to just do a video about that. But right now, we're going to be talking about the mid to late second round. So the first two rounds in Dynasty football drafts are crucial. They're the most important. The couple videos ago, I did what do you do between 101 and 106, 107 area. And then I did what do you do from 107 to now like early to mid second. And now it's mid second to the end of the second. So it's those last like 6-7 picks of the second round. What do you do? And some of these players might even drop into the early third. Again, name recognition. I can't even talk. Okay, just name recognizing those. That wasn't proper English, but whatever it is. So just recognizing those names are going to be important for you to help pick some of these third round gems. And a lot of times these guys just keep falling and falling and falling because we start getting just attracted by some of these combines, some of these numbers and stuff like that. We forget what the tape has produced for a lot of these players 1, 2, 3, 4 years. But anyways, we'll go into, so I think a lot of wide receivers are going to be picked from that end of first to mid second. So you're going to see a lot of these tier 2 wide receivers along with like Mac Jones gone. So you have choices now. Is there a tier 2 wide receiver left, or are we starting to get into tier 3 wide receivers? Are we going to get into the tier like 2 running backs, which ultimately that would be like the Michael Carters, the Jeffersons. There's a couple other guys too, like maybe even like Sermon into that mix. Are we going to have those? Or are we going to go back into even trying to find another quarterback like Kyle Trask or Newman or like any of these other type of quarterbacks? Like, what are we going to do? Ultimately, personally, I think running backs are really, really tough. Like I shouldn't say tough. I think running backs are really, really good at the top level, and I think there's a big dip off at trying to find out. I don't think there's going to be very many gems in that running back position. I'm talking 1 or 2 that are going to be viable. They're going to be that maybe like Austin Eckler type where you're going to see some production, but they're going to be a beta to somebody's alpha. And I think Michael Carter is one of those perfect situations because he's a smaller back. That you might see him be kind of that beta to somebody's alpha. And we saw that he split time and did really well at North Carolina with Javonte Williams. I mean, Javonte Williams ultimately is going to be a mid-first in Superflex. And so you might be getting Michael Carter a round later. If Kenneth Gainwell's there, he is my RB4. He's ultimately probably even above some of these tier 2 wide receivers. And if he goes into a great landing spot, he is going to be jumping almost all the wide receivers. He's the biggest kind of where are they going to draft him. His draft capital is going to be so crucial and so important to his value because we see some of his numbers and we like it. I'll just kind of go briefly through it. 4.42, 40, that was positive. His 3-cone and his lateral agility was lower than we expected, lower than we thought. You want your number, like your 3-cone, especially below the 7, like even into like the 6.8, 6.9s. Like those are some elite lateral agility, and he just didn't show that in some of the numbers. So he has some numbers that back him up and say, wow, he's going to be really good at the next level. And then you have some other numbers that say, wow, he's really risky and could bust out at the next level and not be somebody that we were looking at. So draft capital, draft situation, those are going to be prime spots. And that's why a lot of this is just basically like, well, we're just guessing on we're hoping that all these players kind of land on very similar, like they all kind of do the same landing spots. But ultimately, some of these landing spots are going to shoot people up, and some of these landing spots are going to bring them way down. There's going to be a wide receiver that goes to the Baltimore Ravens. There's going to be a wide receiver that goes to New England, and we're going to hate those situations, especially for the next 12 to 24 months. And so that is something that we have to just kind of keep in mind. But where are we going to do with these end of second or the mid seconds to end of seconds? And it really depends on, again, position. Where are you feeling like that you can capitalize on a position? What do you need? Because what you need is it determines what you are going to go after. Do you need a tight end? Are you in a rebuild? If you answered yes to both those questions, then Pat Freiermuth and Brevin Jordan are good mid to late second round picks, kind of like they are in 1QB. Ultimately, because those 2 tight ends are in a tier by themselves. And once you get out of those two, and Kyle Pitts, who's way above them, once you get away from those kind of 3 tight ends, there's a huge drop-off, and this tight end class falls off a cliff. Kind of like running backs. Running backs fall off a cliff. Tight ends fall off a cliff and talent-wise. Wide receivers, they don't fall off. They have a gradual fall because there's 5 in tier 1, there's a lot in tier 2, and then there's a huge tier of tier 3 that there's a lot of potential somebodies and maybes. So, I mean, those are some situations we have to understand. So, again, where are we looking at this? So, QBs, Kyle Trask, unless he's getting picked in the first round or even like the beginning part of the second round, I'm not touching any quarterback that is going to be named Kyle Trask or anybody else. I'm not going to draft them in the second round. I don't believe that there's a great quarterback outside of the top 4. I mean, Mac Jones is, I think, a really good passer. I don't know fantasy-wise if he's going to be able to produce because of his legs, but there's 4 great options. They're not all going to be great quarterbacks. 1 decent option, and then you're going to have a huge fall off here. That being said, so no quarterbacks, I believe, will be in this situation. If Mac Jones does fall, this is where you attack. If you feel like there's a wide receiver tier 2, I feel like this is another place where you can attack some of these wide receiver 2s. And I'll go through my tier 2 wide receiver at some sort of video, probably after the NFL draft, where are these two, what are all the tier 2 wide receivers? Because some of them will stay in tier 2, and some of them will go to tier 3, and some of them go tier 3 to tier 2, depending on draft capital and landing spots. Because those two tiers are very, very similar. And so if you feel like you're catching the end of the tier, then I would stay. If not, this is where a good spot to trade back is and start collecting a couple of these third-round picks, because I do feel like this draft is deep, where would I rather have the beginning of 1 tier 3 wide receiver, or would I rather have 2 tier 3 wide receivers 5 picks later? And that's where I'm deciding to not punt on the position, but just push back and just be like, I'll take 2 of the tier 3 wide receivers instead of 1 and just try to basically double my chips. Blackjack again, you see a 6 coming up and you have, let's say, 2 8s. And instead of taking that 16 and going, I'm just going to hope the dealer busts, you are now splitting it into 2 hands. Hopefully, they're not amazing hands. Well, maybe you split 7s. They're not amazing hands, but the chances are maybe you win on one of them and you lose on one of them, instead of having one hand where you might win or lose. I hope you guys understand blackjack, because if you don't, I'm sorry, and the last 30 seconds were worthless for you. But anyways, so tight ends, those are situations if you're in a rebuild or if you're in a desperate, needy tight end position, those are some situations that I would definitely capitalize here. Running backs, again, very few and far between. Michael Carter, Trey Sermon, like those are players that, I mean, I like, but I mean, they're not anything special in my eyes. I don't see them being huge fantasy producers at the next level. I mean, a lot of people are seeing a lot of these running backs and they're seeing them like kind of like this Nyheim Hines, James White production level, but they don't act like them. They're like a little less. They're like poor man's James Whites and Nyheim Hines. So ultimately, what you're getting is maybe not the necessary what you want. So instead of trying to get these running backs that I think have a high, I guess, bust rate potential, because I think the running back class is not deep. I think it's like 4 deep, and then the rest are So I think that's where wide receivers go. And then in the third round, because I think, in my belief, I think the drafts are going to go a lot different than what we're saying right now. I think people are going to reach for running backs because people want running backs, and they're going to draft Jamar Chase early. They're going to draft Devontae Smith early. Somebody's going to take Waddle early in one of your drafts. Somebody's going to take Moore. Somebody may even take Bateman number 1 wide receiver. Number 1 wide receiver. And so these drafts, they go exactly how you don't plan. I mean, I've done millions of mocks. Not millions of mocks. I've done thousands of mocks. And never does a draft go exactly how you plan it. Not once. And there's always something that, I mean, I've even basically tried to get inside information of these are going to be the first 5 picks. Perfect. And then they go that way. And then I'm like, okay, well, I know what 1 through 1.06 and 1 through 12 are going to, I know what's going to happen. And then it just blows up, and people start reaching, and trades happen, and people are reaching for these weird running backs, or you'll see maybe Michael Carter go 110 or 111, and you're like, Devontae Smith is still on the board, and you're like, oh my goodness. And then there's a lot of people that honestly aren't watching videos of Dynasty. They aren't keeping up on Dynasty. They see, oh my goodness, Michael Carter, 2nd round pick in the draft. Oh my gosh, I need him 7th overall or 8th overall. And you're going, no, I watched the film and I watched the analytics on him. He's a good running back, but he's not that. So just be ready for chaos. There's always chaos. All right, this is Marcus Dynasty Football Dads. I hope you learned something on my ramble on of Superflex. So, Jerry Judy jersey. All you have to do is be a subscriber for a chance to win. All right, peace out. Take care.
Now turn up.